maybe even a profoundly different way.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, Bashar. I appreciate it.
It is our passion and our pleasure. Thank you. Good day.
Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
We have lots of interesting questions from our viewers.
All right, please proceed.
Well, our number one question was, the mirror on the James Webb Space Telescope looks like the crystal image that is displayed behind the channel when he does live events. Is that a coincidence, or is it just a geometric symbol used throughout the universe for practical reasons?
Well, there are no coincidences in the accidental meaning of the word. But the idea is simple geometry. It's easy to stack things together by using the hexagonal patterns. Now, the idea of the contact crystal is not completely only using hexagonal figures, at least not equilateral ones. So the idea is that it is slightly different, although it might be similar to the central portion of the contact crystal, but stacking things together in the same way that bees create hexagonal honeycombs and the way that different kinds of atomic structures stack together in hexagonal patterns is something that is simply a practical application of allowing things to be as close as they possibly can be and yet still fulfill their function, giving enough surface area to act as the collector for the light that the telescope needs to receive.
Okay, thank you. What is the energetic difference between the eye of the needle phase and the window of open contact phase? Will things start to feel lighter and less intense, or should we expect the deep processing work to continue for quite some time?
Processing will always continue, but the nature of the process will change. The idea of the eye of the needle energy is more an energy of letting go of those things that hold you back, whereas the open contact energy will be a reflection of all the things you have let go of so that things can seem easier, but that doesn't mean processing will end. It simply means that the process will change, the subject matter will change, you will come to face different issues than you have been facing during the eye of the needle process. So it's a matter of not so much a lessening of intensity, but a smoother flow through the intensity so it might be perceived as something easier, even though the level of energy might actually be greater.
Oh. What percentage of the audience today would be capable of interacting with one of the hybrid races directly?
About 27%, depending on the hybrid.
And can you tell us more about dark energy and dark matter, and that are such mysteries to our astrophysicists?
All right, it's a big subject. We will attempt to be brief. Again, number one, we have explained that if you look at this as a structure of two overlapping spirals going in opposite directions, you see that the spirals get greater and greater as they go out. The crossing points are farther and farther apart. Yet the idea of the universe expanding and accelerating in its expansion is the product of those wider and wider crossing points of the two spirals, and yet at the same time, the idea of the expansion of space-time having infinite speed. So you're crossing bigger distances in the same amount of time that you're crossing the smaller ones, which translates into your reality as acceleration. So this is a structural explanation. But for a different explanation of the idea of the difference between dark energy and dark matter, we have a way of expressing it in your language, though it may not immediately make complete sense to you. But we will nevertheless give you a way in which it can be framed. You can look at the idea of dark matter as a photonic electron, and the idea of dark energy as an electronic photon. We know this may not make much sense to you in your language as you understand these things physically now, but that is the only way that we can find in your language to express the difference between the two, and simply express the idea that there are different states of matter, different states of electrons that function more like light, more like photons, and different states of photons that function more like matter, more like electrons. And this is the difference between the idea of dark matter and dark energy.
Okay, thank you. Of the civilizations who consume food, ET civilizations, are you aware of any that are culturally focused on the pleasure of food and are considered intergalactically for their cuisine?
There are several civilizations that do gain pleasure from the eating of food. This is not an uncommon thing. And there are several civilizations that do ingest food that are interstellar and do prize certain dishes that exist, certain cuisine that exists on other planets, if it is compatible vibrationally with them. So yes, those things do exist.
Do the hybrid children eat like we do?
Many of them do. Mostly they have a vegetarian diet or a liquid diet of vegetable and fruit juices. But yes, many of them still consume substance in that way, though it tends to be lighter.
Once they get here, will they feel drawn to try other things here?
Depending on what they have chosen, a few of them may be more experimental than others, but for the vast majority of them, they will maintain their relatively light vegetarian diet.
Because can their physiology handle what we eat here as well as all the toxins that are here?
Again, for the most part, no. But there will be a few who may have chosen to be a little bit more vibrationally experimental, and therefore they will be able to go a little bit further in the trying of different substances.
What about us? Do we ultimately need to become vegan in order to be at a higher frequency?
It's not that you need to, but it's that most of you will, simply because as you raise your frequency, you would simply naturally lose the urge to eat more denser substances.
So you see that happening very soon in the future, because we're talking about contact with these children. By that time, would you have to be vegan to have contact with them?
No, not necessarily. It depends upon the person and what they need for themselves to achieve a certain vibrational level that makes them more vibrationally compatible. But no, not necessarily. There may be some that are still ingesting slightly denser substances that will actually still be capable of raising their frequency to the point where they can interact freely with some of the hybrid children. Although again, it may be certain hybrid children that will be capable of matching those vibrations more easily. But again, you will attract what you need.
Okay. And your civilization seems pretty unified in terms of your understanding of how the mechanics of reality work, and very clear on things like life and death,
Yes.
metaphysics, etc. So whereas humans seem very divided about it and confused, and as we evolve, will we all come to some sort of clear understanding of these ideas?
If you evolve, yes. If you don't, no.
To what degree, when you say evolve, like obviously we're not going to be at the same frequency level you are, but what kind of frequency level would be required here to have a clearer understanding?
At least frequencies that stay within the 200,000 vibrational range. 200,000 vibrations, 200,000 frequency and above. You don't have to be at 300,000, but somewhere in the 200,000s will be sufficient for you to be able to experience many of the understandings that we experience.
And is that same frequency range appropriate for interacting with children or other ETs that are of higher frequency that are coming here?
Some, yes. Not all, but some.
Okay. One of your biggest lessons is following your highest excitement. And do you have to teach this idea to other cultures too, or is it just that it's specific to our, relevant to our Earth experience here?
There are different levels of understanding in the different civilizations we have made first contact with, and some of them do require an understanding in the way we have presented it to you. Not all of them, and maybe not all partially understand things or fully understand things. There are differences within every civilization, and of course how it's expressed will be different according to how they receive information more efficiently. But yes, there are civilizations in which we've had to explain these things similar to the way we've explained them to you.
Yeah, because it's so much our natural inclination to do what's exciting to us. So it's already built into us. It's just recognizing the validity and the importance of what that represents.
Yes, it's about bringing you back to your natural state instead of allowing you to remain in what you might refer to as a normal state, which is something that you've been educated to perpetuate, rather than simply allowing yourself to be more natural, in which you would automatically understand these things because in your natural state, your vibration is much higher. Remember that this whole process is allowing you to remember who you are and to remember how to be who you truly are. It's not about teaching you something, shall we say, that you don't know, but it's about helping you understand how to let go of those things that prevent you from truly knowing your true state, your true being.
Like often on this planet, people will have an epiphany where they let go of a lot of beliefs just instantaneously for a brief period of time and experience themselves without questioning their value, or does that go hand in hand with that higher frequency state that you stop worrying about whether or not you're worthy or you?
Yes, that is a result of being in a high frequency state. For one reason or another, however you got there spontaneously at that moment, for whatever purpose it serves in your life to be there for that moment. Yes, anytime you're in that high state, all of those things that prevent you from knowing yourself disappear because they're not relevant for that state. They're not even capable of being perceived in that state. But at least going into that state, even temporarily, allows you to know that such states do exist and that they are possible for you. And it gives you the incentive to move forward, to let go of those things that prevent you from being in that state more often or even constantly.
So ultimately, is that what it comes down to, is really truly loving and valuing yourself enough so that you can be in a high frequency state?
Yes, and of course, when you love yourself that way unconditionally, you automatically experience the connection to everything else too. And therefore, yes, you know yourself.
So in our society, a lot of people experience competition and feeling like they're not socially as good as somebody else.
Yes. Well, as we have said, you have no business comparing yourself to anyone else because each and every one of you is unique.
So it really means choosing a different way of perceiving yourself than what's demonstrated for you as typical in society of how we look at ourselves.
Yes, of course.
The Shalanaya, there's been a little bit of confusion. It says, you've said that the Shalanaya mean those who come first, and used it seemingly as broader term in earlier transmission to describe the Yael. But Shalanaya is now being used more specifically to describe the name of the hybrid children. Can you explain?
Well, again, remember, we have said that the Yael will be the first hybrid race that you would make open contact with. So in that sense, they come first, as the hybrid races are concerned. But also, they're the ones bringing the hybrid children. So we specifically now, when you understand that the Yael are the first hybrid race you will interact with on a larger scale, can differentiate between the children who will come to live among you as well. So in that sense, both of them are those who come first, but they come in different ways for different reasons.
And you've said that the multiverse is half positive, half negative, and then there's a very fine line of neutrality in between, or that's the third state.
Yes, because then it can't be half and half. It has to be, as we said, 49 and 51%.
Right. So how is it possible that you and your race only experience the positive side of things?
Because that's what we choose to experience. It doesn't mean that the negative side isn't there to be chosen. We just know that it's not what we prefer. We don't invalidate it. We don't dismiss it. We don't become unaware of it. In fact, we become more aware of it as our consciousness expands. But we simply don't choose it.
So when you share information with us about what happened to the Greys and how we seem to be going down the same trajectory,
Yes.
are there multiple ways that we can choose an Earth that doesn't have that experience? And does it always tie into ET contact?
No. You don't absolutely have to have contact with extraterrestrials to experience, as you say, heaven on earth. We're not an absolute necessity for you to experience a higher frequency. It's just that very often when you experience a higher frequency, as I said, you automatically start realizing that you are connected to many other things besides your own world. And therefore, it's a logical extension of a higher frequency. But no, it's not an absolute necessity that you have to have extraterrestrial contact to have an absolutely positive experience as a society on your planet. There are many parallel realities where that's true. There is no ET contact, and yet Earth is a sublime, beautiful, peaceful place.
And does it have to do with, when you say higher frequency states, doesn't what come hand in hand with that, isn't that extra dimensionals, let's say, that you have contact with other levels of reality, other dimensions of reality, dead people, all of that?
Yes.
Like, isn't that part of the evolution?
It can be. It doesn't have to be. There are any number of probabilities, any number of pathways. So you can become aware of those things, and you can actually still choose not to interact with them for a variety of reasons that are not necessarily negative. Remember, as we have said, even when you clear yourself of what might be typically termed fear-based or negative beliefs, there can still be a clearing of what you have deemed as simply not relevant for you. Something doesn't have to be negative to simply be not relevant for you. So there may be civilizations who have the perfect realization that there are extra dimensionals, that there are spirits, that there are extraterrestrials, but they simply realize that for the path they have chosen, it's simply not necessary for them to really open up an interaction with any of those beings. So I'm not necessarily saying that we have found that's common, but the idea is it's certainly probable.
So there's all different ways of dealing with our spirit level.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Are there any lower vibrational civilizations in physical reality that prevent you from using a medium like Darryl to interact with them?
There are some civilizations of lower density that, because they are experiencing a lower density path, might by definition prevent us from being able to connect with them. This is one of the reasons why we have also said those of a certain frequency that are not matching our frequency may eventually find that we will not be able to continue communication with them on that level as we evolve and you evolve. They may simply have chosen a path that puts them on a version of Earth where no such contact is probable.
So originally we would have become Sasquatch without ET intervention.
Well, yes, but that's a different issue.
So for now, like, what would our trajectory be at this point without ET intervention?
You would be harmoniously in tune with the idea of nature and other dimensions of experience as Sasquatch. Just as the Sasquatch that exist on your planet now are.
Is that true that some Sasquatch has taken some people or sort of kidnapped them? And
we would not use the term kidnap, but some rare human individuals have been allowed to transition into other dimensional spaces, other levels of physical reality from time to time with Sasquatch. On most occasions, they are brought back. If they are not brought back, this is up to the choice of the human.
What happens during, what happens? Where are they taking them? What's going on?
As I said, it's a slightly different version of physical reality, a slightly different dimension of when we talked about the idea that Earth has many different shells, many different levels to its physical reality. Well, some of those allow beings to experience a type of physical reality without it necessarily being the frequency of your physical reality. So they may experience a slightly more harmonious, more natural version of Earth. But again, it depends upon the reason why they may have included the choice to visit those places with the assistance of the Sasquatch. We cannot necessarily say there is an absolutely overarching general reason that is true for everyone that may have had that experience, but those experiences are extremely rare anyway.
Okay, that's very interesting. Are there any trees on our planet that are similar to ones on your planet? And we've heard that you can communicate with other humans through connecting with trees. So is that the same kind of tree that you would have, or?
Some of them are from other planets. Some of them are actually from your planet. Remember, we're in a sense an artificially created civilization, and that includes the planet too, where different things were brought from different areas and seeded on our planet to create the environment and the ecological system that we have. So there are some animals from your planet, some trees from your planet, certain other things from your planet, and things from other planets as well, to create a harmonious environment for the hybrid race that we have become. So yes, there are some things. We do have some pine trees on our planet. We have some other kinds of trees that are similar to yours. But of course, some of them have also evolved on our planet and have become slightly different than they are on your planet, even though they originated from your world.
Yeah, pine trees have come up a lot because they're like antenna. I think you described that one time.
Yes, they're like antenna. Well, all trees are, but the pine trees specifically are a type of antenna that functions as a go-between in a diplomatic or ambassadorial sense between the plant kingdom and other kingdoms on your planet, to use that term loosely.
In our nature, it seems to be the phenomenon of survival of the fittest, and the weakest don't survive. How can we look at such an antagonistic relationship here on Earth?
Well, first of all, don't look at it as antagonistic. That's a definition. Nature doesn't view it that way. There are things that need to be cleared out that are not necessarily allowing nature to continue or evolve in the most efficient way. So it's not an antagonistic system, especially when you come from the spiritual point of view, that everything exists forever. Nothing ever really dies. But you can trade things out. In a sense, I'll use this simplistic analogy of saying that when you replace a part on your automobile so it runs more efficiently, that's not an antagonistic system. You are simply allowing the vehicle to operate more efficiently. So nature is similar in the context of letting go, letting those parts that are not necessarily operating efficiently transition into spirit so they can, in a sense, be revitalized and perhaps even, in your terms, linearly return in a more efficient way. Remember, nothing ever completely goes away. It is more often than not, in the simplest way to phrase this, although again, remember, this is a linear phrase, more things are recycled than eliminated.
Right. Is exercise necessary to stay healthy here on Earth?
For the most part, yes, some form. Because again, when you move in some way, shape, or form on a regular basis, you are allowing the cellular structures in your body to osmotically pump and move things through your system in a way that is necessary for you to thrive. So some form of movement, one way or another, will allow the pumping actions of the systems in your body to supply all the things necessary for you to thrive in physical reality.
So another question about being here on Earth and recognizing that at any given moment, there's a certain amount of suffering that's going on between animals and people. And then there's this birth and new life and joy and happiness that's also going on here.
Yes.
And for people who are attracted to being positive and being in the light, so to speak, how can they look at the pain and suffering without feeling bad about being here or being afraid that it might happen to you?
You have to learn the vibration of compassion. You have to understand that every path is different. And again, as we just said, everyone is an eternal, infinite, indestructible spirit. Many spirits will choose certain paths that may look like suffering to you, but for very specific purposes of learning different kinds of experiences and lessons and transforming and overcoming them, which allows them to feel their power. And therefore, again, the idea is that everything can be used in a positive context. When you succumb to the idea of feeling bad about it, instead of feeling compassion for those people and helping where you can, helping them to learn how to transform those things, then all you're doing is adding more negativity to the things that they've already chosen to experience. And again, remember, it may simply be a matter of education. If they don't have the toolkit to understand how they can transform these things, you can give it to them if you do, and that would be an expression of your compassion. Not that they have to listen to you, but at least you've given them an opportunity to transform these things and gain the wisdom and the knowledge that they sought in the first place by allowing themselves to buy into belief systems that brought them into those kinds of experiences. So, from compassion, you can be a teacher. You can be a living example of what they could choose. But again, you have to allow them the opportunity not to choose it, because you see them as a powerful being that's learning a lesson, and not as somebody who is actually weak enough to suffer endlessly and not know why they're there. Everything will be reconciled and everything will be used to positive intent one way or another at some point, whether physical or non-physical. Nothing is wasted.
So are the greater density level planets, is there always pain associated with those lower density or higher densities and suffering? And so what is it unique about this level of density that seems to bring about so much negativity and pain?
Well, this level, this vibration offers the opportunity to experience or relate to these ideas of resistance within the natural self in a painful way. Where there are a few other realities that may experience ideas of resistance, but it doesn't translate as pain. But the vibrational reality of Earth at this time and the way you're experiencing it offers the opportunity to experience resistance as the phenomena you call pain.
So here it functions as a kind of guiding mechanism if you're experiencing pain.
Because when you experience pain, that's a very good guiding mechanism for letting you know you're out of alignment with your true vibration.
How do human bodies utilize the electromagnetic field of Earth? And are there other untapped uses for the electromagnetic field?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, the human body can utilize it in a number of ways. First of all, you can use it for directional orientation, just as many animals do. You can utilize it to accelerate and spin up, shall we say, the electromagnetic field of your own bodies that is generated by your body, so that in matching the frequency of the Earth's electromagnetic field, you can feel a little bit more energized by mirroring it and tapping into it. Eventually, you will learn to use the electromagnetic field, as a few isolated individuals throughout your history have learned to use it, to generate unlimited free energy. There are many different things you can do with the electromagnetic field that you have yet to realize.
Okay, and also for healing?
Yes, of course.
So basically for free energy, for healing.
Yes.
Sounds good. A lot of people have questions about soul contracts.
Yes.
Like one question that's come up is, if you make a soul contract on a certain level And then you're here on earth and you're living your life and you decide you don't want that soul contract anymore. How are you empowered to change that? Do you have to go to the higher level to do it? Can you just make a statement? I decide I want a different contract, or how
No,
does that work?
you have to find a way to learn the lesson that the contract originally intended. You can always find a different way to learn the lesson, and you don't have to do it while you're physical, but you've made a commitment, and the commitment, in a sense, shall we say, has been chiseled into the fabric of existence itself. So the purpose, the intention behind the original soul contract must be fulfilled, but it can be fulfilled in any number of ways. But you can't avoid the commitment that you made in the contract, the reason for the contract. You don't have to do it in the original way you designed the contract, but you do have to fulfill the commitment you made behind the purpose you originally intended the contract to fulfill.
And is often that contract basically about becoming self-empowered
In general, yes.
and self-acceptance?
Yes, but it can have some specific attributes to it that also you have deemed were important for you to learn as a soul. So you may still have to find ways in which to learn those specific things, but again, you can find other ways to do that. As long as you fulfill the intention of the contract, you don't have to fulfill the letter of the contract.
Sort of like the idea of you'll walk down the hall
Yes.
and you can do it many different ways,
Yes.
but ultimately whatever was behind the initial contract that you created for being here,
Yes.
that
Yes.
is
because
something you have to
knew
play
what
in.
you were doing. You knew what you were doing when you chose the intention behind the contract. So attempting to avoid the intention is a form of resistance to the true self. But there are many ways you can go about learning the intention, fulfilling the lesson that you chose to create that contract for. You don't have to do it with the letter of the contract, but it is important to do the intention behind it because you deemed that to be absolutely essential when you created the contract, and therefore it's an essential part of your being as a unique reflection of all that is, and you can't avoid being your true self. You can delay it, but you can't avoid it.
So when you choose to experience life on Earth,
Yes.
one thing you choose is the family you'll be born into,
Generally, yes, for a variety of reasons.
and you'll have some recognition that that particular circumstance, while you can't control the way the negativity is expressed in a sense, because people come here and then they go, well, why am I here and I'm suffering? I'm in this terrible family.
Stop. Yes, you cannot control the way that the negativity may be expressed toward you. You can control the way you choose to receive it. And that's what counts. Because again, remember, it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that determines how you experience your life. So no, you can't control the way things may come at you, but you can control the way you receive them when you understand that that's what makes the difference. And that may very well be, in most cases, the very lesson that you chose to learn, to control how you receive what is given to you.
So it also comes down to trusting your higher levels of yourself and recognizing that the choice that was made to be here, regardless of what circumstance you currently find yourself in, that it was designed for you to evolve and to become more of who you truly are.
Yes.
And so it's not a good idea to like get mad at your higher levels and say, well, why did you do this to me, or feel victimized by that?
Yes.
Or to be, in a sense, angry at the beings that are in your reality that you may feel put upon by.
Yes, in general. Although do remember, some people have chosen to experience the idea of victimhood as their life choice, so that they can add that to their soul and have a deeper understanding of all those who may be experiencing it in a way that perhaps someday they can help with. So sometimes a person may choose this life is going to be about experiencing what it's like to be a victim. And I'm not going to change that because I will deal with the lesson that I've learned from doing that somewhere else. So I'm not saying it's impossible to have a single, shall we say, motive for that particular life and not necessarily be able to change it. That's relatively rare, but it's not impossible. So again, you have to allow for all probabilities and all reasons for the choices that are made. But if you find yourself receiving information that gives you the opportunity to change it, more often than not absolute, but more often than not, the fact that you've attracted information that says you could change that state of being and that mindset is an indication that you can, in this life, do so. Otherwise, if you really were committed to the idea of only being a victim, you would probably never attract any information that would allow you to actually change that state, unless that's part of your victimization theme, is I will see all this information that could tell me I could change, but I absolutely will refuse to connect to it. That's another level of playing the victim to the hilt. But again, that's relatively rare.
I'm actually pretty surprised. So actually you can choose a life here that involves victimhood. And then you may or may not be able to change that depending on
how it serves you not to do so, and how it may serve others not to do so when you finally are capable of applying the lessons you learned by being a victim. But again, if you do attract information that could change that state, it's unlikely that you are absolutely committed to that state alone.
Okay. Would you consider victimization like if someone that's born with a handicap or something like that?
No, not necessarily. No.
Okay.
Again, there are a million reasons why someone may choose that, and they don't necessarily all have to do with victimization.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, it's very interesting to understand how we think at the higher levels.
Yes.
Okay. And many of us are taught on this planet that we're here by mistake and that we need our time here to correct that error. Who in his right mind would choose to leave heaven or the awareness of God's perfect love to experience separation?
Well, similar to what we just said, first of all, you're not here by mistake, you're here by choice. The idea, again, is that you can experience separation to have a greater appreciation of connection. There are, again, any number of reasons why you might choose to forget who you are. One of them primarily being that it gives you the opportunity to remember who you are, but from a new point of view. Remember, in a timeless, changeless state, you don't grow, you don't learn anything new. But when you forget who you are and go through a process of discovering who you are, you come at it from a new perspective, and it's the new perspectives that actually help you expand and grow. So when you say you think you're perfect in the non-physical state, well, you are what you are in any state, and you are perfectly that thing. But you don't necessarily grow when things are timeless and changeless. So growth, expansion, is one of the primary experiences of all that is knowing itself in all the ways that it possibly can. Otherwise, it just becomes a static thing that has no reason for being.
And is the ego necessary? There's been a lot of different viewpoints of like eliminating the ego, and etc.
Yes, we are laughing at that statement.
I know, because you can't be here and experience this without an ego.
The ego is simply the physical personality that allows you the opportunity to experience yourself as a physical being. That's all it is. As we have used the analogy, it's like a diving mask. You decide to go diving in the ocean. If you want to see clearly under the ocean instead of being murky about it, you need a diving mask that gives you clear vision. That's all the ego is. Now, you can let go and not experience the negative ego, but you can't let go of the ego as long as you are physical.
So it's really a distinction between negative and positive ego, right?
Yes, the positive ego just has one function, to allow you to experience physical reality as clearly as possible. It's just the structure you call the physical mind that allows you to know yourself as a physical being. The negative ego is what happens when you give the positive ego too much to do, beyond what it's designed to do. You make it think it has to control everything. that would be as silly as saying that the diving mask should have the job of telling you where to go and what to look at. No, it's just that when you decide where to go and what to look at, the diving mask gives you a clear vision of it. It doesn't have the responsibility of figuring out what you should do and when you should do it. But when you think that your physical mind has those responsibilities, that it has to control everything, every single moment, then it becomes overburdened and it becomes the negative ego that thinks it's more than it needs to be. But the ego is just a device to allow you to experience yourself as a physical being. That's all it is.
And as far as like free will, like a lot of people have very strong feelings about free will.
Yes, well, you do have free will within the limitations of the destiny you chose to be you. So free will is, again, what you exercise in physical reality to determine how you will experience the idea of the free will choice you made from spirit to walk down a certain hallway, and that hallway is you. So you can only be you in this particular form at this particular moment because that's what you chose to be. You are a unique path. So you can exercise your free will to be many things and many styles of approach within that path, but you can't be something other than you. That's your destiny, so to speak.
What about like developing psychic abilities while you're here on Earth?
Yes, well, you all have psychic abilities.
What are some ways that you can develop those so that you have a more expanded experience here on Earth?
You raise your vibration. And how do you raise your vibration in the easiest possible way? You follow the formula that we've given all of you of acting on your passion, because that raises your frequency.
Right.
And when you raise your frequency, you are capable.
Before we begin, I would first like to extend my deepest appreciation for allowing us to interact with ourselves
Absolutely.
through you as a permission slip.
It is our passion and our pleasure.
Throughout my physical life here, I had the exciting opportunity to experience deep and severe levels of negativity, suffering, depression, and pretty much everything in that category.
How exciting.
Indeed.
How brave and bold of you.
Thank you, I guess.
I know. Because you can use this now to your advantage. Remember, unless you haven't heard it before, what we call the rubber band analogy?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Therefore, you understand, the farther you pull the band back into darkness, when you finally let go, it'll give you that much more momentum to fly that much faster into the light. So you were bold and strong enough to pull that band very far back. That means you have a lot of potential energy built up to go flying into the light. So that was bold of you.
I'm glad you mentioned that because it seems I'm still stretching backwards.
Do you want to let go?
Yes, and that's why I'm here.
And what it is in your belief system that stops you from letting go. What are you afraid will happen if you do let go and fly into the light and be the self you prefer to be? Yes?
I don't think I'm afraid. I just think I'm not able to identify a specific belief system that I have.
All right, well, one moment. We use the term afraid, but this is what we mean by it. Do you remember us talking about the motivational mechanism and how that works? Would you like a recap?
Yes, please.
You all have a motivational mechanism. It works like this. It works all the time, immediately, without fail. There are no exceptions to this. You always choose in the direction of what you believe benefits you. Always, without fail. What you believe benefits you more than the alternative. You always move away from what you believe does not benefit you. So, what that tells you, if you understand that mechanism and how it works, is that if you are not letting go and moving in the direction you would prefer to, that can only mean you have a belief attached to staying where you are that makes staying where you are appear more beneficial than where it is you prefer to go. You need to find out what that belief is. And that usually translates as if you do let go, you're afraid that something will happen that you don't prefer to have happen. That's what we mean by being afraid. You are projecting, or the negative belief is convincing you that if you do let go and become who you prefer to be, that something worse and less beneficial will happen than simply remaining where you are. Does that make sense as a mechanism to you?
It does make sense, yes.
So you need to figure out what the belief could possibly be that would make staying where you are more beneficial or seem to be more beneficial than where it is you prefer to be. Do you have any clue as to what that might be?
Well, I have sharing, if I may,
Yes.
with an experience like that.
Yes.
So I went back and I analyzed most of my negative experiences that I had, and I realized that most of the times, if not always, they were self-inflicted.
All right. And because...
And then I went and I asked, why is that? And then I found the reason.
And that was?
The main reason for me is that I find myself attracted and passionate about the idea of falling in love with the wrong person 99% of the time.
Because?
Well, I don't know. That's why it
Because you
stops.
don't deserve anything better?
Yeah, I think so.
So this is an issue of self-worth.
Well, if you ask me now, I feel like I deserve, but then I think it's something more deep inside that.
I know
overrides
that you empirically know you do, but if you believe that you are not worthy of it, that is going to take precedence. That's exactly what I just described as the motivational mechanism. If the belief that you're unworthy is stronger than the belief that you deserve it, you will deprive yourself of what you deserve because that belief is stronger.
How do I shift the belief?
Well, find out why that belief would be stronger. Why does it seem safer, I'll use that term, to deny yourself what you deserve? Are you concerned that if you allow yourself to attract what you deserve, that something will go wrong with that? Or it won't be what you thought it would be?
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. Well, you have to be honest within yourself about these things. So, if you did allow yourself to attract what you deserve, what you know you do deserve, just by your existence, what do you imagine might go wrong?
I think it would be maybe too much of positive
Too
energy.
much positive energy.
Yeah, probably.
What would too much positive energy do to you?
I'm not sure. I haven't experienced it yet.
Yet you have an idea that it is something to avoid. So whether you have experienced it or not, you obviously have a belief about it that isn't benefiting you and prevents you from moving toward it. So what do you imagine too much positive energy might do? Blow the top of your head off or something?
Something like that, yeah.
So you're saying you can't handle that much positive energy?
I'm sure I can,
Are you?
at least empirically, as you said.
Well, but do you know it in your bones as true? Or is it just an intellectual concept for you?
It's just a concept.
Why isn't it in your bones? Why don't you know it to be true that you can handle it? I'll give you a hint, unless you can figure it out.
Please, go ahead.
All right. You have to look to your definitions of what it means to have positive energy, because you are creating a definition wherein having positive energy could possibly have something go against the positive energy, and that's not a definition of positive energy. You have a different definition. So you have to clarify and clean up your definition of what it is that's capable of happening when you create a positive state of being. Many people on your planet say exactly what you're saying. I would create a positive state of being, but I'm afraid that if I do, something negative will happen. That's not a definition of a positive state of being. Nothing negative can happen in a positive state of being. Even if it looks like it's negative, even if somebody else defines it as negative, you will know that by staying in a positive state of being, you can only extract a beneficial and positive effect from it, no matter how it was created, no matter how it looks, no matter what anyone tells you about it. You know that by staying in a positive state of being, you cannot be affected negatively. That's what you have to know is the definition of being in a positive state. Any other definition is not a definition of a positive state. So you have to be clear about how you're defining the concept of what's possible in a positive state. Yes?
Yes, and this is where intuition comes into place, and most of the times, actually, it never failed me.
Intuition can, but this is really just about knowledge. It's about knowing how things work. It's about understanding this literally almost from a physics point of view. You cannot experience what you're not the vibration of. It's simply not possible to experience something that you are not operating on the same wavelength as.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because there were cases when I felt extremely excited and positive and
Yes.
and everything was wonderful, and then the outcome was completely different.
That's because you are equating the idea of that outcome to being in the positive state, and that's not the case. I understand that physical reality and continuity can make it seem as if that was the outcome of the positive, excited state, but it wasn't. If you have an outcome that is actually truly negative, now I'm talking about something different than what you expect, because just because something unexpected happens doesn't mean it's negative. If you're labeling it as negative because you didn't get what you expected, that's the definition you need to change. But the idea is that if you do experience something negative after having been in a positive state, that negativity is not the result of the positive state. That negativity is the result of you leaving the positive state. And that means you applied a negative definition to what happened instead of a positive one. You can recognize that something that manifests may not be what you expected, may not even be what you prefer. But that's a neutral observation and does not insist that you have to define it in a negative way. You have to know that whatever happens in your life, whatever pops up, no matter how it looks, must be there for a positive reason. And if you stay in that frame of mind, you will be able to use even what you don't prefer in a way that you do prefer. That's how you use the negative positively. And then when you use it in a positive way, it will usually go away because you've used it up. There's no reason for it to hang around, because you were willing to validate it as having a reason to be there that serves you, instead of assuming that just because something unexpected happened, something went wrong. That definition is what causes you to experience that something went wrong. The thing in and of itself doesn't have built-in negative meaning. Nothing has built-in meaning. You give it the meaning. Now, you may give it that meaning unconsciously, and then see the negative result from the negative belief you applied to it so quickly you didn't even know you were doing it. But that's why it's so important to become aware of your definitions so that they don't catch you off guard by making it seem as if, well, that just happened out there. That's just because that's built into that situation. No, it never is. It's always coming from you. And therefore, you have a feedback mechanism that lets you know how to course correct and realign yourself and say, wait a minute. I don't have to automatically assume that just because I got something I didn't expect that that's a negative thing. Let me see how I can define this in a positive way that serves me. Catch yourself, stop yourself, find the definition that gave it the negative experience, that attached the negative experience to it, and let go of that definition and replace it with a more positive one so you can get a beneficial effect out of whatever happens. Because as we have said, and we'll say again now, it doesn't matter what happens. It only matters what you do with what happens. That's what makes the difference. Is this helping?
It is, and I have tried just that, but it feels like...
No, you haven't. Because if you say, I've tried it, you're saying that you still had an assumption and an insistence and an expectation of what the result was supposed to be. You don't know what the result needs to be until it shows up. And that's what shows you what it needed to be. So you have to let go of any insistence on what you think it's supposed to be. Do you understand?
Yes, it feels like the body sometimes just takes over the mind.
That is an excuse. And it comes from a negative belief, because that's not true. You're buying into something as if it's a fact. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's a fact. The fact that you feel like the body sometimes takes over is one of the tools the negative belief uses to convince you you don't have the power to change. You have to see through the lie, the smoke and mirrors of the tools the negative belief uses. It's not doing it maliciously, that's just how it's built. But you have to know that that's not true. In other words, when you hear yourself saying, or hear yourself even thinking, sometimes the body just takes over and I can't do anything about it, that's exactly, perfectly, and precisely the moment to stop yourself and go, wait a minute, that's not a fact. It's an opinion, it's a belief, it's a perspective, and I don't have to buy that as true. But negative beliefs will make themselves appear to be facts, appear to be true. You have to catch them in the moment and say, tricky little belief. I heard that coming out of my mouth, I heard that going through my head, and I almost fell for that, but I caught myself. So thank you for allowing me the practice to have more discernment over what really is and isn't a fact. Is this helping?
A lot.
All right.
Another layer of this
Yes.
experience is the fact that I've
Is
not.
the fact that?
Well, it's the
Is the belief that?
belief. Well,
It's a fact that you can have a belief, if that's what you're saying.
okay. It's a belief that during my experience here, there seems to be a particular female template that helps me experience this negative cycle that we just talked about. And
All right. But if it helps you experience that, it must be doing it for a positive reason, yes?
but why that specific physical template? That I
You
compare
must
everything.
need that template to teach you something about yourself.
I learned that I'm tired of this.
Maybe that's the lesson.
I was tired a long time ago.
Obviously not tired enough.
Yeah, I'm.
When you are really sick and tired of being sick and tired, you will stop choosing to be sick and tired. Obviously, if it keeps happening, you're not tired enough. So keep doing it until you're really tired enough of it. Then you'll let it go. You'll realize that you don't need to keep doing it. Because you can only be doing it because you believe it serves you. Remember motivational mechanism?
Yes.
You can only experience what you believe serves you. So you must not be tired enough of it yet to let it go. And that's okay.
So there's no other reason that there will be that specific repetitive physical template. It's just an excuse, a permission slip for me to feel miserable.
Yep.
And it's working great. Is there a way I can slow down my aging process? There was somebody who
By living in the moment. And you know how you live in the moment? You follow your passion to the best you can with no insistence or assumption as to what the outcome is supposed to be. That's how you accelerate your vibration, and by contrast, accelerating your vibration allows you to slow down and live in the moment. And that's how you become ageless.
slowing down the molecular level of the aging process through
Be
meditation.
living in the moment. Because you know how when you're acting on your passion, it seems like time passes in a flash?
Yes.
You've had that experience?
Yes.
So if you are doing something you love to do and you're in that state of being and it appears like or feels like maybe 15 minutes has passed, then you look up and reconnect with the world and oh, it's been 2 hours or 3 hours. What you feel was the time that passed, the 15 minutes, is all you've actually aged. Even though you might reconnect with the world 3 hours later and catch up to the consensus reality of time, if you only experienced 15 minutes in that experience of joy, you have actually only aged 15 minutes. That's how you become ageless. You collapse time. You live in the moment. You don't experience as much time because you're not focusing on so many details that you need more time to focus on them. You're acting holistically. You're living more in the now, which is timeless.
But there's so many passionate people who age just like everybody else.
And that's okay. Just look at how they age, though. I'm not saying you won't mature. Even we mature, but we are not infirm. We are not diseased. We are still energetic and Many of you are too, no matter how old you are. You're getting more and more examples on your planet of people that are over 100 who can probably outdo you. So the idea is to understand that that's possible, understand it's becoming even more probable, and allow yourself not to focus on that needing to be the outcome, but just focus on living in the moment and let yourself age and mature naturally for you. Because there is still a reason for that to happen in your society to a certain degree. Now, that will become less and less and less necessary over time. And for some individuals, it may not be necessary at all at any age, in any time frame, in any era. But the idea is that if it does happen while you're living in the moment, then there's a reason for it to happen that serves you. So stop having the insistence that something shouldn't be happening. Just use what's happening in the most positive way you can. That's the point of this conversation. Yes?
Yes.
Does that help you?
A lot.
All right.
And one last thing.
Yes.
I feel like I'm absolutely ready to meet you in physical form.
You are not.
What happens if we do?
You will blow up.
And what happens if I'm okay with that?
Well, then, what purpose does that serve?
Well, I
What
guess we'll
purpose
find out.
does that serve? Tell me what purpose it serves.
What if we try in a lucid dream? Would that be...
In a lucid dream is fine.
So can we meet?
Because that's a different dimensional vibration. And there is, shall we say, less probability that our higher vibration won't overwhelm your vibration and force to the surface the things that you may not be ready to integrate within your psyche yet. This conversation between us has happened because you're still working on yourself. Yes?
Yes.
You're still holding on to certain vibrations that are wholly incompatible with the vibrational frequency on which we operate. We operate 10 times faster than you. It would burn you out. Therefore, the idea of incorporating this information is what allows you to accelerate yourself and become more vibrationally compatible. But the idea of being in another dimension, in what you call the lucid dream, that acts as a buffer. It's another reality that allows us to be more vibrationally compatible without negative effect to you in terms of your physical journey. And obviously, you are still on your physical journey and still exploring the idea of belief systems within you that don't serve you. And therefore, it would not really serve you for us to interact in your physical reality at this time. Please understand, we've done this before. We know what we're talking about, and we will do nothing that in any way, shape, or form, from our perspective, in our experience, would bring any degree of harm to you. So we cannot do that yet. But there will be potentially a time in which that could happen. The more you live in the moment, the more you accelerate your vibration, the more you become vibrationally compatible with us. And so in time, in perfect timing, then something like that could happen. You need to increase the probability by being more of yourself first. That's the process. That's contact. But you're having contact right now anyway. So the idea of physical contact with us can't be made to seem better than the kind of contact we're having right now. This is how it works. And you have to simply trust that we know what we're doing. All right?
I trust you. Thank you.
Our unconditional love to you. Pleasant dreams.
All right.
First question is from an individual who is saying their wife passed away last Friday, and the person feels overwhelmed. They have 2 children, and they feel guilty and responsible for their lives to move on, as well as since they no longer have a mother figure. And the person's been crying all week, and they're trying to be strong for their children. Do you have any advice for this person? Is there something that their wife or their spirit guide wants them to know? And is this part of their process of going through the eye of the needle? How do they proceed from here?
All right, well, we are not going to necessarily interrupt their grieving period. They must let go of their fear-based beliefs about the situation in whatever timing they feel they can manage, but at the same time know that this was all done in terms of an arrangement of timing, and that the loved one in spirit can still aid and assist and send messages and love to those still physical. But the idea is guilt does not serve the children that you are responsible for. It will actually prevent you from giving them what they need. There is no reason for you to be guilty. The idea is that this would not necessarily have come to pass if you couldn't handle it, if this wasn't by an arrangement and an agreement. We would suggest you reach out to your wife, knowing that the sooner you can relax the feelings of grief, use an opportunity for you to align with Spirit more strongly, to receive more messages from her, to receive guidance from her and your spirit guides in terms of what you and the children may require for your continuation on earth. And know that she is always with you, unconditionally loving, sending energy, sending help. More likely you will receive these in dream time, but look around with open eyes at the synchronicities in your life, knowing that many of them may be coming from her as messages to you. Relax your heart and open your heart to receive these messages in the best way you possibly can by looking around and being alert and paying attention to the synchronicities that will crop up in your life, allowing you to move forward in an easier way. We would suggest that you take some time for yourself to visit places that were of interest to both of you when she was alive, knowing that in those places that you love to be together in, there may be more receptivity on your part. And even though you may be crying, know that this is a release and a letting go and an accepting, eventually, of the situation at hand that you have both agreed to for the purpose of stretching you and your children towards spirit, knowing that one of the parents is now in spirit, can help you all progress and ascend and accelerate your learning and your lives and enrich your lives in a number of ways. Explore the idea with your children of communication with spirit, for it is as real as any form of communication, and perhaps in some cases even more real, as you understand that term. But work together with the children to open up in beautiful places to the idea that you can receive messages through synchronicity and in dreams, and maybe in other ways as well. And remember her favorite things. For when you do remember her favorite things, again, you may relax and open your heart to receive more information from her. These would be the things for now that we would suggest to help you through this particular period until such time as you yourself become more accustomed to realizing that as long as you consider this to be a loss, as long as you define it as a loss, then you will only continue to grieve each and every time that your wife may actually reach out to connect to you. You will only interpret her energy as a loss and feel more grief. But if you understand that sometimes what you may feel as grief is simply your interpretation that she is gone, instead of your interpretation that she is there with you and helping you, allow yourself to relax that definition so you can receive the help she is giving, the help she is sending, the information she is sharing with you that will lead you forward. This is what we have to say at the moment.
What is the difference between guilt and responsibility when it comes to dealing with family members? I've tried to maintain the relationships, but they are no longer exciting. Continuing with these relationships feels heavy and burdening, yet I feel guilt for keeping my distance. I of course love them, yet prefer to focus on my own self-discovery. Can you help me in this scenario?
Now, there are two ways to address this. Number one, if you feel it is absolutely true for you to not interact physiologically with these people because you are vibrationally so incompatible that it simply makes no sense to do so, that is a choice you can make. And again, by doing so, it can be the most loving thing you can do by showing them the consequences of not choosing to match your frequency and maintaining the connection on their part. At the same time, if you truly are in touch with yourself and the vibrational state you know is true for you, then in some senses it wouldn't necessarily matter if you maintain a connection physically with them, because it won't affect you. You will not feel guilty, you will just be yourself, and you will know that you're acting as a living example to demonstrate to them different choices they could make. Whether they choose to do so or not is not the point. The point is that you may give them a choice, you may give them an opportunity to choose something different by maintaining a physical connection and not being affected by anything that is vibrationally incompatible with what you prefer to be. But again, it is up to you to decide when you have reached a limit, when you have realized that they may simply not choose to change and may in fact actually push you away by resenting the idea of what you are showing them. And that might be your signal that physical connection may need to cease. So you need to simply prepare yourself to make a choice by first and foremost getting a stronger connection in yourself about what is true for you. Feeling guilty about this will only connect you more to the vibration you say is incompatible and that you don't prefer. So that makes no sense for you to feel the sense of guilt, because all you're doing is accepting the idea that they resent that you are changing. They resent that you are different, perhaps because it acts as an example to them of things they were not willing to face within themselves. You can act as a living example if you maintain your vibration of preference, but again, you don't have to, because even if you don't, it still serves as an indication to them of what choices they have made and the consequences of those choices relative to maintaining a physical relationship with you. So if they wish to do so, they would have to change. Not that they will, but they would have to do so.
How does that apply in a situation where a person has had an abusive childhood and now their aging parents are requiring their support and their attention, and the person feels guilty because they're not willing to be physically present with their parents under the circumstances because of the past?
Again, it's the same that we just said. If you maintain a strong sense of your vibration and at the same time realize that you can be of some assistance to someone, if it is truly true that they need that assistance, you must make that determination for yourself as opposed to things they can do for themselves or not. So if you have determined that you have made a familial connection by being born to these people, and that there is something you could truly help them with to aid and assist them in whatever they're going through, whatever process they're going through, and yet at the same time maintain the strength of your connection to who you truly are, then you will not be negatively affected by whatever behaviors they may choose to exhibit, knowing that you are being of great assistance to them if they truly need it, and that is the most important thing, is to demonstrate to them the unconditional love that you know can be expressed by you to truly aid and assist them if they truly require it, and at the same time not be negatively affected by whatever their reactions or responses or behaviors may be in that circumstance and situation. And it gives you an opportunity to practice letting go of the idea of the past, since again, if you realize many of the things we have been sharing with all of you, there in a sense is no such thing. You are recreating the idea of abuse in every moment in the present out of your own need to do so. So discontinue your need to hang on to the idea of the abuse because of your belief systems that you may require it for some reason, that it serves you in some way. And when you let that go, you will be able to stand in the face of great opposition, and you will be able to face those fires with coolness and calm them down within yourself, regardless of what the other people may choose to do.
And we've noticed that often when parents get elderly, they get early signs of dementia or behaviors that could be suggestive of dementia. And that part of that can be being abusive and impossible to deal with, in a sense, irrational in their behavior. Is that, again, this idea of stepping outside of the issues of abuse from the past and simply recognizing that the person is not themselves, in a sense?
Yes.
When they're elderly.
Yes, and if they are experiencing the symptoms you have described, they are usually making their transition, whether quickly or slowly, into spirit, but they may be momentarily confused about what is real, because they are bordering two realities, the physical and the non-physical. And therefore, you can recognize and excuse their behavior as one of confusion. And again, if you stay strong within yourself and know what your truth is, it will not affect you any more than a stranger making an irrational statement would, because they have become strangers to you and you to them in many ways.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about the inherent guilt surrounding religion? This person says, I was brought up in a Jewish tradition, and it's been a long road in terms of shedding guilt. Guilt if you're happy, guilt if you're healthy, guilt if you're wealthy, guilt if the other shoe is going to drop. I would love for you to talk about untangling this kind of guilt.
All right. Well, first and foremost, it's not inherent. It's taught. That's a major distinction to make. And therefore, it can be untaught. It's simply about recognizing whether or not the guilt serves you. As we have talked about the motivational mechanism, please do remember, you absolutely do nothing that you don't believe serves you in some way. So this is about really doing an honest, deep investigation of what it is you believe you're getting out of having the guilt. What does it allow you to experience or not experience that makes you feel safer in having it than in letting it go? This requires a very deep and honest investigation of self in order to admit that if you're holding on to guilt and keep repeating it, no matter how much you were taught it, if you're now able to discern the difference between guilt and freedom, guilt and love, then you have the ability to dive into your motivational mechanism and ask yourself why you would be motivated to continue to perpetuate something if it doesn't really serve you. Because the only way you would keep feeling it is if you believe it does. So it requires a lot of transparent self-investigation to ask the question, what am I getting out of continuing to hold on to guilt? There must be something about holding on to it that makes me feel safer than the alternative. And if you're willing to investigate and go down that path, you will eventually be able to pick it apart and figure out why you're holding on to the guilt, because you think there's some advantage to doing so. Otherwise, you would not feel it at all.
How can we be at peace with the idea that we may have hurt, wronged, or made mistakes with others along the way on our learning journey? How can we release those feelings of guilt and regret about the impact we've had on other lives that may have been negative so that we can move forward in a more aligned way?
Well, the idea is self-forgiveness and the recognition that if you know you made a mistake, so to speak, and are willing to correct it in your own energy and not make the same mistake again and not be abusive to other people in that way because you recognize it is out of alignment with who you prefer to be, then you have corrected the energy and there's no reason for guilt. Guilt perpetuates the idea of the misalignment. So why would you hold on to the idea of misalignment if you recognize that you were misaligned and don't prefer to be misaligned anymore in your behaviors and actions? Why hold on to any remnant of the misalignment, which you would experience as guilt if you truly wish to move forward? If you recognize you were misaligned and have a desire to realign yourself and correct the mistake in some way, shape, or form, then there is no vestige of guilt that would remain if you've actually done that. So you can't really move forward until you accept that you made a mistake and now you wish to correct the mistake and the energy within yourself and bring yourself back into alignment.
And along those lines, are there any experiences that are more or less spiritual than others? Is it possible to do a good, bad, better, or worse job with our lifetime? And is there really a mistake? Can we really get this wrong? A lot of these ideas perhaps bring about a lot of self-judgment. So that's why this person is asking the question.
Ultimately, no. You are not judged by all that is or anything except yourself. Ultimately. But there is still the ability to recognize what it is you prefer, what it is you don't, what it is that is vibrationally representative and compatible with who you prefer to be, and when you are in alignment or out of alignment with that. That is the only thing that could be considered a mistake, even though it's not meant in the traditional sense. In other words, a mistake is simply a recognition, an alignment energy that allows you to recognize that you may have been out of alignment with who you really, truly, at your core, are and prefer to be. Oneness and alignment and harmony with all that is. So a mistake, ultimately, no, is something that can be used as a learning experience, a teaching experience, to reflect back to you that you may not necessarily be operating in the state of being you prefer to. And in that sense, if you learn the lesson from that and recognize the truth of that and bring yourself back into alignment, then you have used the so-called mistake in a way that makes it not a mistake, because you've used it in a way that brings you back into harmony, into alignment. So ultimately, no. But in the moment, you can simply recognize and use your words, whatever words you wish to use to identify the misalignment, to bring yourself back into alignment.
Okay, and